They taught you to be honest, to work hard, to be kind, to wait your turn. And where did it get you? Machiavelli wrote The Prince in 1513. 500 years later, the men at the top of every institution, every boardroom, every government, every power structure, are still reading it. The men at the bottom. They're still waiting to be noticed. This isn't a motivational video. I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to show you how power actually works, not how your parents told you it works, not how your teachers told you it works. The truth. Cold, precise, uncomfortable. Let's begin. Machiavelli understood something that most men never wills. The most dangerous position is being too capable in front of the wrong person. History is full of brilliant men destroyed by their own competence. Nicolas Fouquet, the richest, most gifted man in France, threw a party so impressive that King Louis XIV had him arrested 3 weeks later. His crime, making the king feel small. This is the first cold truth. Power doesn't reward merit. It rewards perceived loyalty to those above you. The man who outperforms his boss doesn't get promoted. He gets managed out, quietly, professionally, permanently. So what does the strategically intelligent man do? He conceals. He calibrates. He lets his superior shine. And in that shadow, he builds. This is not weakness. This is the patience of a chess player who sacrifices a pawn to control the board. Machiavelli called it not virtue in the moral sense, but the calculated capacity to adapt your behavior to the demands of the moment. The emotional man shows his full hand in the first meeting. The strategic man never shows his full hand at all. Here is something most men fundamentally misunderstand. Power is not a resource. It is a perception. The man who appears powerful draws actual power toward him. The man who actually is powerful but appears weak loses it. This is why Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." Your reputation is not your character. It is a weapon, and you must craft it deliberately, the way a blacksmith shapes iron. In modern terms, the executive who speaks last in every meeting is not silent because he has nothing to say. He is silent because he understands that scarcity drives value. Every word he withholds is a deposit into a psychological account. When he finally speaks, the room listens. The man who talks constantly. He is the background noise nobody hears anymore. Ask yourself honestly, when you walk into a room, do people adjust their behavior, or do they continue as if nothing changed? If it's the latter, you have not built perceived power. You have built perceived availability. And available men are never feared. And in power dynamics, it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Machiavelli's most misunderstood lesson isn't about cruelty. It's about distance as a governing mechanism. A prince who is too accessible becomes familiar. A familiar prince becomes contemptible. A contemptible prince becomes replaceable. This plays out in offices, relationships, social circles, every day. The man who is always available for coffee, always answering texts, always willing to help. He is appreciated the way you appreciate a vending machine. Convenient, unremarkable, forgettable. Strategic distance is not coldness. It is architecture. You are designing how others experience your presence, so that your absence creates a specific, calculated discomfort. Here's a real mechanism. Stop being the first to respond. Not because you're playing games, but because your attention is a finite resource, and finite resources have value. Stop attending every meeting, every gathering, every obligation, simply because you were invited. Invitations are requests. You are not obligated to accept every request. Your presence should feel like a decision, not a default. The moment someone has to wonder whether you'll show up, you have begun to build real leverage. Of all the weapons in the arsenal of power, silence is the most underestimated and the most devastating. In negotiations, in confrontations, in social situations, The man who speaks first after an uncomfortable pause has already lost. Why? Because silence creates psychological pressure. And under pressure, people reveal themselves. They fill the void with concessions, with information they didn't intend to share, with emotional displays they cannot retract. That pause you just experienced, that was deliberate. Notice what happened in your mind. You waited. You wondered. You were slightly uncomfortable. That is exactly what happens to the people across the table from you when you master the discipline of strategic silence. Machiavelli didn't write about this directly, but every page of The Prince breathes it. The prince observes before he acts. He calculates before he speaks. He understands that information flows toward the patient man and away from the reactive one. Everything I've told you so far is preparation. This is the execution. Machiavelli's ultimate lesson was about necessity. A prince is secure not when he is loved, but when he is necessary, when removing him creates a problem that no one else can solve. This is the standard you must hold yourself to. In your career, in your relationships, in every power structure you inhabit. Ask yourself, if I disappeared from this organization tomorrow, what specific, irreplaceable problem would go unsolved? If you cannot answer that question immediately and precisely, you are replaceable. Becoming indispensable is not about working harder. Every replaceable man works hard. It's about controlling a choke point, information, relationships, a specific skill set, access to something or someone that others need to flow through you to reach. The man who controls the choke point doesn't need to raise his voice. He doesn't need to demand respect. The structure of the situation demands it for him. This is what Machiavelli understood about power that his contemporaries missed. Real power is structural, not personal. It doesn't depend on how likable you are. It doesn't depend on how hard you work. It depends on where you position yourself within the architecture of necessity. Machiavelli was exiled, tortured, dismissed, and from that exile, he wrote the most influential manual on power that the Western world has ever produced. He understood something at the end that took him a lifetime of failure to learn. The world does not reward the deserving. It rewards the positioned. You have two choices now. You can close this video, go back to working harder, being nicer, being more available, and wonder, years from now, why the results never came. Or you can start thinking architecturally, about perception, about distance, about silence, about necessity, about where you are positioned in every structure that matters to you. Machiavelli didn't say power was moral. The question is whether you're willing to engage with reality, or whether you'd prefer the comfortable story